Bayloric TV making his debut. Very quickly, Adam.
Hi.
You always talk about mouth-watering events.
Yeah.
What's the most mouth-watering event that you've been a part of since you've been with Sky?
Oh, blimey. Plenty of them. Best fight I've ever commentated on, without question, my old friend, the late great Diego Corrales against Jose Luis Castillo, their first fight. Glenn McCrory would say Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales won. But I would go for Corrales Castillo. I thought that was just unbelievable for 9 rounds. The Rocky story, the ending, 2 guys at their peak. For me, that was the greatest fight I've commentated on. The greatest event I've been at, I don't know. Frochgroves at Wembley stands out, obviously. But, you know, when Naz went to the Garden and fought Kevin Kelly, you had Kennedy McKinney and Junior Jones talking trash on the card. There were so many knockdowns, I lost count. We had Donald Trump, I remember, was there. Piers Brosnan, all sorts of people were at ringside that night in the Garden. They're great nights. Ricky Hatton beating Costas Hugh at the Manchester Arena, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, we'd all been following the Hatton story. Everybody loved him. Could he beat the great Costas Hugh? He managed to pull it off. I love big events. I love big stories. When Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko, a special night. Could this be another one? It's amazing having Gennady Golovkin here in London. It's a privilege to have one of the great fighters of the modern era over here. And what a story it would be if Kell Brook manages to do the impossible. It would be one of the great upsets in sport. And so that would be right up there as another event.
Final question. When you have pundits are sitting around the table, or Sky asks questions, is it a case of you're supporting the fighter that's on your channel, or is it a case of being unbiased and saying, hey, you know, our guy could get beat here tonight? How do you go about that?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it's we're in a sport which obviously we have a promoter in Eddie Hearn, and we have a stable of fighters that he has and we show on Sky. But look, Liam Smith goes in against Canelo Alvarez next week. You know, we debate that, we talk that. You know, we look at everything independently on SkySports.com, on Sky Sports News. You have to do that, of course. Do we want Kell Brook to win on Saturday night? You know, the majority of people in this room want Kell Brook to win on Saturday night because it's great for British boxing. But as a commentator, you know, I've got to remain unbiased. I've got to sit there and say, look, I call the fight as I see it. And it's important for our analysts to do that. We've got a great team, Paulie Malignaggi, Carl Froch, Matthew Macklin. We've got great guys around who've been around the sport so long, and they're not afraid to say what they think. So there won't be any bias on Saturday night or on any night, trust me.
Carl Froch, comeback? Do you have any inkling he'll come back and fight Gennady?
I mean, Carl Froch is part of my team, and I spent a lot of time with Carl. I think that they met in Germany last year at the Fury-Klitschko fight, and they shook hands, and I think there was a little bit of talk of a possible catch weight, and it went on a little bit. Tom Loeffler was there and Eddie was there, and I think there was the possibility back then that maybe something could happen, but I think he's too far retired now, Carl. I think he's had a few months since then. I don't think you'll see Carl Froch back in a ring, certainly not as a fighter.
That's your take on it?
You never know when he's sitting there on Saturday night. Fighters are funny animals, you know. Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler were talking about a lot in this fight. What did he have, 5 years out? I mean, you know, Carl could just look there and think, you know what, I fancy this again. And I'm sure he will, but I think he might do the sensible thing and not come back.
Adam Smith, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV.